It's almost 60 years since it happened, a presidential campaign ballooning to utter predictability, the L word, landslide thrown around, and the Gallup company discontinuing polling with 2 weeks to go because, gosh, why bother? Our third story in the countdown, knowing his history and at least the psychological rudiments of complacency. Senator Obama wants no L words uttered, and yet uttered they have been. From 538.com today, Obama 354 rounded up, McCain 184 rounded up, and the second least happy person about that right now, Mr. B. Obama.
We are 19 days away from changing this country. 19 days away. But for those who are getting a little cocky, I've got 2 words for you. New Hampshire. I learned right here, with the help of my great friend and supporter Hillary Clinton, that you cannot let up, you can't pay too much attention to polls.
Still, NBC's own political unit today reported we're on landslide watch now. Obama's evident success is forcing the McCain camp to focus on defending traditional Republican states like Virginia and Colorado. Another sign of weakness yesterday when the RNC pulled presidential ads out of Wisconsin. This while Obama goes on offense, shifting resources back to the red states of North Dakota and Georgia. The campaign is also signaling a move into 2 GOP-leading Appalachian states, Kentucky and West Virginia. Tomorrow, Obama begins what the Democrats are calling a red state tour: Virginia, Missouri, North Carolina, and Florida. Let's turn now to Chris Kucinich, Democratic strategist, former communications director for the John Edwards presidential campaign. Chris, good evening.
Good evening, Keith.
Complacency, is this really a fear among Democrats? I mean, given how much flatly revenge is possible in this vote, given the uniqueness of this vote for African Americans, as somebody put it, this is a vote 400 years in the making. With those components here, can there really be complacency?
Well, there can be, and complacency is the enemy of any campaign. The last thing you want to do as a campaign is somehow convince your voters that this election is over, so why bother? I mean, that is the exact opposite thing you're hearing from the Obama campaign. That's a very smart message. I mean, I think that today in particular, when Senator Obama talked about remembering New Hampshire, it wasn't simply about a call to action. It was really lighting that fire that you want in the final last 19 days of any campaign, in particular a campaign that is this critical. You want your voters mobilized, you want them impassioned, you want them energized, and you want them obviously to go vote. At the end of the day, the only polls that matter and the only thing that matters in terms of where you are in the polls are the ones after Election Day. You want those votes to come out. So I think what you're going to see from the Obama campaign is a very aggressive get out the vote effort with this very aggressive call to action message that you saw today.
But Obama and the red states, Kentucky, North Dakota, seriously?
Well, it's fascinating how this battleground map has changed in just a short amount of time. States that, traditionally vote Republican have now swung not only to toss-ups, but in some cases leaning towards Senator Obama and the Democrats. I mean, not only I think you're seeing this kind of swing in places like Kentucky, you're seeing it in Georgia, you're seeing it in West Virginia, and I think it is a reflection of how much this country is moving in another direction. Listen, there's a chance, and I don't want to be presumptuous about it, but there's a chance that this could be a realignment election, kind of like we saw in 1980. If the voters come out, if they're as energized as I think they are, they have a chance not only to move this country in a new direction in a way that is clearly a win for Senator Obama, but in a big, dramatic way. And I think that is also what's going to energize a lot of Democrats and a lot of supporters of Senator Obama.
Bob Dole's pollster today said he does not understand what the McCain campaign is doing at this point, still spending, well, I mean, it's more specific than that. He's talking about the spending of time and resources in Iowa and Wisconsin when they are far behind, probably outside the margin of being able to catch up in those 2 states. When Bob Dole's pollster says rethink things, what does that say? Where does that say you are in the campaign?
I've kind of given up on trying to understand the strategic thinking of the McCain campaign. It basically is a head in the sand type of strategic thinking. I mean, we've talked about this a lot, and I think it really, tells you something, that this campaign seems to suffer from a strategic dysfunction that is plaguing every part of their campaign, from their message, from their tactics on the ground, from the debate strategy, to now where they compete in key battlegrounds. I mean, it's almost like they're living in an alternative universe where they're ignoring the polls and the trends. They're not going to win Iowa. That place, I think that state is gone. They're not going to win places like Minnesota, obviously, or Michigan. And they're now going down to a smaller group of states. And that is a big problem for them. And it's almost like they just don't want to believe it.
The Democratic strategist, Chris Kucinich, we're not using the L word. Great. Thanks for your time, Chris.
Thanks, Keith.